I'm Peter. I just ate dinner at a fancy restaurant, but I'm kind of in a hurry. So without looking at my waiter or my bill, I'm handing him my credit card. I trust him to charge me appropriately. Why do I trust him? Because it's a social construct. The bill says I've had a steak for $32 and a PBR Tallboy for $5. The subtotal before tax is $37, and the total including tax is $40. How should I tip? Well, the easiest way is to move the decimal place over 1 to the left, which would make the total $4, or 10% of the total bill. Now multiply that by 2, and you have $8, or 20% of the total bill. In the United States, this is a suggested tip for good service. Why is it a suggested amount of 20% of the total bill? Well, we don't know, because it's a social construct. It is said that the word tip is an Old English acronym for to ensure promptitude. Because before tipping was the norm, well, you could wait up hours for your PBR. It's also said that tipping is a custom imported from Europe. In Germany, the word for tip is Trinkgeld, which translates literally to drink money. Because heaven knows Heinrich is going to need to blow the froth off a couple before serving all those volts. I know what you're thinking. Paying $5 for a can of PBR Tallboy is insane. I mean, if you went into a store and saw a 6-pack of PBR Tallboys for $32, well, you wouldn't buy that because that's nuts. Same goes for steak. If you go into the supermarket and see the steak priced at $32, well, that's bonkers. The point being that you come to a place like this for the luxury of being served. By paying $5 for a can of PBR or $32 for a steak, I'm announcing to the world that clinging to my dollars is not a top priority to me at the moment. The luxury of having my food cooked for me and my drinks brought out to me is paramount here. I don't have to do any of the dishes or deal with any of the recycling. That's awesome. For the sake of illustration, let's pretend this is my bill. Food cost came in at $80. Drinks cost $17. The subtotal before taxes was $97. After taxes, the total amount of the bill was $100. Now, a lot of people would look at that total and say $15. That's a pretty good tip. But I'm not going to do that because I'm not 85. Now, if you're 90 years old and you want to leave a 15% tip, by all means, go ahead. You've lived a long life, you've lost a lot of loved ones. But for the rest of us, 20% or $20 is the ideal tip. For example, just look at the total of the bill, $100. We move the decimal place over 1 to the left, that's $10 or 10%. Multiply that by 2, and that's $20 or 20%. You see how easy that is? Let's do another one for illustration. This time, let's say I was on a date. Our combined food total was $76. Drinks were $4. The total before tax was $80, and after taxes, the total of the bill was $83. Now, using the simple math, we move the decimal place over, giving us $8.30, or 10% of the total bill. Multiply that by 2, you get $16.60, which is 20% of the total bill. Now, that is a good tip for good service. Now, let's say we were not happy with our service. Maybe the server was apathetic and slow. Our drinks never got refilled. Maybe he was hitting on my girlfriend while I was in the bathroom. Well, if that's the case, maybe I'll tip a little less than 20%. But I'm not going to leave no tip because that's douchey. Also, the server's going to get taxed by the government 8%, whether I leave him a tip or not. For the sake of illustration, let's say I'm out at a restaurant with 7 other people. The food total is $280. Drink total is $40. The subtotal is $320. And there's a service charge added to the bill of $64, giving us a grand total of $384. Ugh. Now, what is the $64 for? Well, essentially, the restaurant has a policy that for parties of 8 or more, a 20% gratuity is included in the bill, which is where we get our $64. Why do restaurants choose to do this? Well, in a lot of cases, large parties tend to take advantage of the social construct of tipping. In closing, let's just do a couple more examples to show how simple the math can be. If we have a tab that is $25, move the decimal place over 1 to the left, that's $2.50, or 10% of the total bill. Multiply that by 2, and you have $5, or 20% of the total bill. If you have a tab that is $65, we move the decimal place over 1 to the left, that's $6.50, or 10%. Multiply that by 2, and you have $13, or 20% of the total bill. Lastly, if you have a tab that is $125, we move the decimal place over 1 to the left, that's $12.50. Multiply that by 2, and that's $25, or 20% of the total bill. Thanks for watching. We don't know why tipping 20% in the United States is the social norm, but it is. Hopefully this video has shed a little light on how easy it is to fall in line with that social construct. Waiter!